Hey everyone, Andre here with a very special guest being Kevin Cassidy from GoNintendo. That's right, it is back, or soon to be. Not entirely sure when we're posting this video, but the site is relaunching with a brand new look, focus, and all kinds of things. Kevin, how the hell are you doing?
I'm tired. How are you?
I believe it. Yeah, you've been working probably non-stop on this design for how long now?
Well, it's been, I guess, really, like, the first idea of coming back, I guess, was about half a year ago. But, like, as far as getting things going and building stuff and putting stuff together, it's been, like, 4.5 months, 5 months.
Wow. Yeah, and that's a whole process, right? You have a whole new design, whole new backend, I imagine, a whole, largely a new staff and a new focus. Like, you know, I believe you're, like, reimagining how you're handling things. So tell us a little bit real quick about, we'll get more into it later, I'm sure, but tell us a little bit about, like, what the new GoNintendo is. Like, what exactly is the new GoNintendo, and how does it differ from the previous one?
Like you said, literally everything is new. Anything we had before, I'll still do so. You know, we were known for ungodly amounts of Nintendo news coverage up to date, so we're still doing that. That's still happening, but there's going to be, I'm aiming for the same kind of focus with features this time around. So we'll have multiple features a week. I was going to say every day. I don't want to put myself into a position where it isn't one day and somebody gets mad, but it should be every day we'll have some kind of new feature. And it's a huge staff, so this is completely new for me, because when I was doing GoNintendo before, it was at most 3 people doing things, but now we're just shy, if not right at 30 people. So it's a split between news and features writers, and they're going to be working constantly, and I'm part of both of those teams, so I'll be doing that stuff too. But yeah, everything's new. A complete redesign for the site, a new staff, new focus on different kinds of coverage, new back end, new front end. Everything's literally new. So yeah, it's been a lot to do, but exciting too.
Yeah, now I've seen you gave me a sneak peek at the new design, which again may be out by the time we're posting this video, and yeah, it looks awesome. Like, I'm so excited to have GoNintendo back, because it just didn't feel right, Kevin, without having your site there. Like, you've been a mainstay of the Nintendo scene for longer than I've been around. I mean, not around, but like on the scene, which is wild to me, because it feels like I've been covering Nintendo for a while, and yet I remember when I was working at Nintendo, I was reading GoNintendo, like, while between taking calls, I was reading your website, getting the latest on Nintendo news. So it felt weird for this about a year period of which you basically took a break from the website and didn't update it at all, aside from, I believe, like, you did upload a couple of, like, I think, reviews or some small commentary things on recent games and giving updates on the new site's progress. So I know you, like myself, have been a bit of a workaholic. So what was it like? I mean, I believe, feel free to correct me, but
no, you're right.
So what was it like taking a year away from the website? Like, tell us a little bit more about that. How was it being away from the Nintendo community by and large, or being at least an active participant in it? And just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, like you said, definitely a workaholic, whether I had that intention or not going into it. That's how it turned out.
It's kind of like, being a creator kind of rolls into that, unfortunately. Yeah, it's hard to avoid.
You know, so yeah, I was gone for a year. Stuff happened in my personal life, let's just say like that. I wasn't intending to be gone, but that's what happened. So, but the feeling of being gone was surreal, because just like you were looking at Nintendo news every day. That's what I was doing, covering Nintendo news. Literally, I'm going to say it and people will think it's not true, but it was literally wake up, go to the computer, and then spend almost all day at my office. And then, you know, at night it was either go to bed, wake up and do it again, or play something to review, go to bed and wake up and do it all over again. And you've been there, you know what that's like. And being removed from that was crazy, because it wasn't just a disconnect from work, it was a disconnect from a way of living that I've done for the last 17 years, I guess it is, or something like that. So for much of that time, I was completely removed from what was going on with Nintendo in general. Like, you know, I still had an idea, but I wasn't as connected as I was. I was still playing all the big games, but I didn't know the day-to-day, literally minute-to-minute stuff. So, like, stuff would pop up when I was just being nosy and reading news, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know this happened. I didn't know they were doing this. So it's such a strange feeling to go from being in a place of knowing so much to literally just picking up stuff here or there. So getting used to that was awkward. And then I had disconnects from the community as well, which the GoNintendo community has always been really, really, really important to me. But along with that, it was disconnects from friends that I met through work, like you, for example. We talked often, and like, I just lost out on all of that, and I lost out on so many different connections. And the more I was sitting at home not doing it, the more I was thinking about how much of a huge portion of my life it was outside of just the work aspect. It was just, it bled into so many different areas. So after talking with my fiance, and she was the one who really convinced me to be like, you know, I know you've been through some stuff, but I think you should give it another go and see how it happens. And then you can hopefully find the same success, or if not more success. Or she's like, even if things don't pan out, at least you went back and gave it another shot. So I was like, she's right. I really should do that. And then, you know, I'd heard from people throughout the whole time saying, like, they missed the site, they missed the podcast, they missed blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I miss it a lot, too. It's a part of me that just disappeared, and I wanted to give it back, or get it back. So I was like, I guess I'm going to give it another go. And that was the start for, I was like, I can't just come back. I have to redo everything, because a relaunch for the site was overdue for a long time, and an overhaul was really needed. So I was like, this is the time to do it. So that's where we started.
Yeah, and that effort definitely shows from what I've seen so far. And like I said, I'm excited to see where the site goes from here. So you kind of touched on it a little bit. Was there any point during the past year where you considered not bringing GoNintendo back? Like, did you consider doing anything else outside of running a website?
Well, you and I have talked personally. I know you know what I went through, and I'm not looking to get into specifics, but yeah, there was a time where I was like, I'm done. I'm just done with. It wasn't so much done with GoNintendo, and obviously nothing bad happened with GoNintendo, but it was a feeling of being done with the internet. Like, I was like, I just don't want to work on the internet anymore. Right. I don't, because, I mean, you and I have both been through stuff over the years where things happen and you're like, man, I'm covering video games and this kind of stuff is happening to me. Like, you know, let's just say horrible stuff where I'm like, man, I just want to talk about Mario and Legend of Zelda and stuff, and I'm getting this kind of stuff. So I was like, you know, I want to be removed from that. I was like, now as far as like thinking about what else I would do at the time, I was like, oh, I can freelance, and there's other outlets that I had written for, and stuff not even related to games, but I had written for Prima, and that's obviously game related, but there's other stuff that I had written for, and I was like, I can freelance and pick up stuff here and there, so I'll be good, and then you know, I'll just take what comes my way as it happens, and we'll take it from there. So for a while, I was telling myself, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. That's enough removed from the internet where I can be mostly anonymous and everything's okay. And, you know, I thought about it and I was like, yeah, this is good. And then the months rolled on and I was like, I don't know. I was kind of get the itch to do more. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to take that route. And then, especially, this has to be especially true for you. I was feeling the itch to be creative. And with you doing videos all the time, yes, it's work, but it's a creative outlet, and you're making stuff, and it feels like you're doing something. So I had that, like, lack of having an outlet for being creative. And I was like, I was talking to my fiance about this, too. I was like, you know, I was doing news all the time and the podcast and all that, but I didn't realize how much the creative aspect of it meant to me, and not having that after having 17 years of doing that, it felt like a void. So all those things combined together into another conversation I had with my fiance that I referenced earlier, where she was like, yeah, give it a go, basically. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to do it.
Right. And as part of that, as you mentioned, like, it gave you an opportunity to kind of reinvent how the site works and the amount of work or the type of work you're putting into it, I imagine. So, yeah, how did that process evolve during it? Like, did you know initially, it's like, okay, I want to change how things work, and how did that look to you, like, in rebuilding everything behind the scenes to get it ready for, for the future?
So that was all completely new to me, obviously, because I was doing the vast majority of what was going on at GoNintendo. I did have a couple other people there, and they were doing things, but by and large, it was a lot of me. And I was like, if I go back, I can't do that again. Like, I shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. I handled it wrong, but, I started a site, like, long before GoNintendo was around, and I just was doing a blog. The blog started to take off, and it led into GoNintendo, and that became my career. That was my day-to-day job, so it was something I never imagined ever. So there was a level of success with it, and you get that feeling where you're like, okay, this is successful. I got to keep going. I got to keep doing it. And then before you know it, you've dug such a deep hole, and you're like, where else am I going to go? What am I going to do? I got to keep doing it this way. So I had something to take me out of that and see it differently. And I said, I can't go back to that. I have to do something differently. And that was married with the idea of wanting to do more features, more reviews and previews and opinion pieces and all that sort of stuff, because I've always had a desire to do that. But my schedule for GoNintendo at the time didn't allow for it. I was doing news all day long. So I was like, I need a team. I need a team to help me do this kind of stuff. And again, completely new to me. So it was just a feeling out process with people I put out the call through Patreon and on the site and on Twitter, and I got like a much bigger response than I could have ever imagined, and I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do, but I wanted to respond to everybody. I made sure to respond to everyone just to let them know, I've seen your email, I know it's taking me a long time, but and then just the process of seeing what people wanted to do and where they were at and any experiences they've had in the industry up to that point. But we have a mix of everybody, people who have written for other sites before, people who are looking to get their foot in the door. Like, I want that mix of everybody. But yeah, I mean, I've had the team together for maybe about a month now, but it's still all so new to me. Like, right. We have a private Discord where I go in and delegate stuff and talk to people, and I'm editing reviews and all that, but just going in like from a place of authority, going into the room and being like, we got to do this, we got to do that. That's not how I am in my personal life. It makes me feel awkward. Mm-hmm. But it has to be done, so I'm learning that, and I'm making sure I treat everybody with respect and listen to everybody's fears and concerns, and because a lot of this is new for everybody, me included, like I said. So it's a feeling out process, but it's also exciting.
Yeah, it sounds it, because you have I forget if you mentioned it earlier, but you have a big crew this time, right? Like a few dozen people, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere between 25 and 30. I'd have to do the count again, but
right. And
then it's a split between a news team and a features team. So yeah, it's. I would use the word insane for me. It's an insane amount of people to handle, but they've all been great, and they've been working really hard and very understanding of, like, because I'll be upfront with them. I'll be like, listen, this is new to me. I've never done anything like this. I'm going to screw up. Like, call me out if you need something, or if you see something, or you think I'm doing something wrong, or there could be something done better. So They've been great, and I'm really excited for everybody to see what they've been doing. Features team has been writing stuff for like a month now, and news team is doing some practice posts because it's news. You can't really news happens that day, so they're gonna, it's a little bit of trial by fire for them when we launch. But they've been practicing posting and hunting down news and all that stuff. So I'm just excited for everybody to see what they're capable of.
Well, that's amazing. So you've been sharing all your news gathering secrets with them, I take it?
Yes, there's a secret Google Doc with my whole rundown of what I do and how I do it and everything. Because, I mean, I did largely the same routine for 17 years, and I had it down to a science. And then when I was putting like this document together for these news people to run the round, I wrote it down at first and I was like, these are the scribblings of an insane man. I'm like, this makes sense to me, but I showed this to somebody else and I'm like, they're going to think I'm crazy. So, I went through and made it make more sense. And I was like, I know this is a lot. I know it looks overwhelming, but I promise you get into a rhythm and it'll become second nature. So they seem to be doing good so far. I literally have no complaints. So.
Well, that's amazing. So how's it been for you then to kind of take more of a backseat when it comes to being, maybe not the face of GoNintendo, but the one who's like responsible for posting pretty much most of the stories on the website. Obviously your site is just launching again, so it's probably going to continue to be a process for you, I imagine, particularly now that building the site is largely done. Now you can move into the content creation side. But yeah, just how's that been for you in general so far? Like, has it been a big change? Is it something that you're already appreciating now, having a greater creative outlet at this point than you did perhaps in the previous version of GoNintendo?
It's a unique feeling because, like you said, I was. Don't get me wrong, I had the great help of people with the old GoNintendo. It just wasn't a big team.
Right.
So, I was doing a lot more, and this has been a big change because now I have like an actual schedule with everybody's times mapped out and when they're going to do it. So I'm still working on the site every day, but I have a defined block of time, and then when that time ends, I can do what I want. So that's foreign to me because I haven't had that in so long. And I don't want to say it's tough as in like I'm some sort of like tyrannical monster where I'm like, the site is mine, only I do things.
Right.
But it is tough in the sense that, it's my baby.
Yeah.
Like it's how I made my living. It's connected me to Nintendo in ways that I never thought possible. So it's tough to be like, okay, my block's over, you go ahead. And like I said, I've given them the guidelines and I'll be in there helping them out and stuff. But yeah, it's a lot of turning over the keys basically, so it's scary and difficult and foreign to me, but it is also exciting because it gives me that time to do more features, because there's stuff, basically for creating original content. My outlet was the podcast, and I loved doing the podcast because it gave me a chance to have those discussions, in-depth discussions about games and stuff like that. And I would often tell myself, I don't have time for the features to write them out or make videos like I want to, but I have the podcast, so that's my avenue for getting that out. But now I will really have time to do that stuff, so I'm excited to explore that more. We were just talking a little bit before we started recording. I'm working on a Kirby thing that is something I wouldn't have normally had the time to do, so it's already starting, and I would imagine once the teams get into their real rhythm of the site being open and running, then I'll have more of that time to explore those kind of things, so I'm excited.
Yeah, no, that's really good to hear. Like I kind of mentioned it a bit earlier, but being a content creator is such a kind of like a weird and largely new type of thing, right? It's something that didn't really exist in the form it does now, just, a decade or a little over, I guess, at this point. You've been doing it for 17 years, I think you said.
At least. I mean, when I started, podcasts were new. I remember that vividly. It was like, if you've got a website, promote them with a podcast. Right. And I was like, what's a podcast? What's a podcast?
Yeah, what's pod mean? What? So it's interesting because it's so easy to kind of like, it's hard to even put into words, like almost maybe kind of lose yourself to the thing you create, because you realize what works, like what gets attention, what you're known for, and it's easy to just kind of get lost and focused in on that, and then to the point where, like, yeah, you don't have any time left to do things you may also want to do, it's easy to and I remember, like, I've had This is I think your second time on our channel. I think we discussed one other thing before, but like we've talked we talk a lot over the years, and I'm like, oh, it'd be awesome to have you on for a discussion. You're like, oh, sorry, I'm way too busy. Don't have any time.
And I always felt terrible about that because we've had a great relationship for so long, and we talking with you in a messaging program is easy because I can do that while I'm working.
Exactly,
but you would invite me on things, and I'd have to say no because I'm like, there's no time. I can't do it. It's impossible.
An hour block at least or so. Right?
Yeah. I was like, I used to think like, man, if I did it, the amount of stuff I'd miss while I was gone would
That's like 300 GoNintendo news stories right there.
Yeah, like I'd be screwed for the rest of the day. I just can't do it. But yeah, you're exactly right. I don't want to be over dramatic, but you know the pain of it. When it is content creation online, a lot of people from the I'm not trying to make this woe is me or anything like that, but a lot of people from the outside will look and they'll see like me running a website or you doing a YouTube channel, and they're like, they got the greatest jobs in the world. They write about video games. They make videos about video games. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, and I'm sure it's the same case for you. It is a great job, and we do get to play games. That is a ton of fun, but the factor of burnout is real because you have to keep creating that content, and while you're creating that content, you're thinking about the next thing you got to make, and there's schedules of what's coming, and then, particular for us, you're like half excited when a Nintendo Direct gets announced, and half like, oh my god, no, I can't.
Nailed it. I was going to bring that up. That is literally how I feel. I'm like, I had the initial hype. I'm like, oh my god, yes. I'm like, oh god, so much work involved in that.
Yep. That's literally like when there's a Nintendo Direct, whether, say it's one of the quote-unquote longer ones where it's 40 minutes. I'm like, well, that's the whole day shot. That's it. Like, I cover the Direct, and then it's assets and trailers and coverage all day long. I'm like, that's just the way it goes. With the most recent Direct that happened, I was like, I'm going to enjoy this one because this is the last one I'm watching as just a fan again. Yeah. So I like put it on my TV and like kicked back on the couch. I was like, this is so good and it's going to be gone soon. So I got to really enjoy it.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I haven't had that. I don't think I've had that feeling since Nintendo Directs began. I'm pretty sure I was doing this before they did. So that sounds amazing. In fact, Ken and Kristen was talking to them from Nintendo Minute. They said something similar too, where now that they are outside of Nintendo, they're able to enjoy it now as a fan. And although what they had to do with Nintendo Directs were a little bit different, they were never surprised by them. They knew what was coming up in them. So that must be like a fun feeling in your case to not have the pressure of covering it.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about getting a new story up immediately. During the previous one, and yeah.
It was same with you. It's coverage on the fly.
Yep.
Like most of the time, we don't know what's going to happen. We might have some inkling, but most of the time, something gets announced and you're covering it as it goes, and right. I know you're firing up the analysis machine to pick apart every little piece that's in there. I'll watch that stuff and I'll be like, how does he do this? How does he like? I just can't imagine the time it takes. And then on the flip side, I'm like, posting screens and posting trailers and posting press releases. Yep. And just every little tidbit, because whatever's in a Direct is the tip of the iceberg, because Nintendo's own website adds 20 new pages for games, and they all have details that weren't discussed in the Direct that also aren't in the press releases, and you're like, it never stops. There's a whole week could go by and you're still learning information from the stuff that came out of the Direct. So I'm like, man, oh man, I have to enjoy this last Direct while I can. Because they're painful. As a fan, they're great, but as someone who's covering them, they're painful.
Yeah, definitely cherish that feeling. Though I hope that you're able to find more enjoyment now with your new structure with things in general. Because that's the case for at least in my experience too, most projects we deal with, even getting a game in for a review, it is exciting. It's fun. It's great. I've been looking forward to this game. I get to play it, but then you have to worry about, the review and having the game finished in time for the review embargo, ideally. Yep. And there's just a lot of work involved into everything. So, when people are like, oh, you just get to play out games all day, that must be amazing. It is in some respects, but in others, it's like, you probably play more games than I do. Not you, I mean, the audience.
Yeah, no, you're right. I definitely agree with that. And the embargo stuff is tough, and that's something I've been talking about with the team, because a lot of them are new to this. So I'm like, listen, it's great when I can give you codes for stuff, and I'm excited to do that for you, but there's embargo previews and embargo reviews, and we have to take that stuff extremely seriously. Yep. But on top of that, it's a deadline. You want to work to be at that deadline and have your coverage out at that deadline, because if you miss that, hour period when the embargo's lifted, you're not going to be part of the big wave of coverage, and that's it. You miss out. So it's tough, because I've told the team, like, if it's something like, I don't want to name names and name games in particular to seem like I'm slighting things, but if it's something like, an indie platformer versus like a 80-hour RPG, like, your embargo means something a lot different, because you could have like a month for that RPG, and it's still, you're going to be, if you're trying to be at that embargo date, you're going to be crunching. It's a lot of time, and it's tough.
Yeah. No.
And you don't want coverage that's painted by the embargo time. You want coverage that's painted by the impressions of the game. So, I told them, if there's something you're working on and you're going to miss the embargo time, just tell me, because I'd rather you have a complete, honest opinion of the game than something you rushed to get done and it ends up painting your review in a certain way. So, but it's tough. It's tough.
No, that's a great point. I mean, that is something. I mean, just having any kind of embargo at all or deadline inherently will affect to some degree, probably how you're playing the game, possibly how you're perceiving it. Obviously, that's something we all try to avoid, because you don't want the pressures of making a review affecting your perception of a game. And while I'm sure that's a case, I imagine a lot of writers, that's something they try to avoid themselves. It's actually it's pretty much impossible to fully tell whether or not that is the case or not. Like I myself. Try to make sure that's not affecting my coverage, and I don't think it does. But I may not be fully aware of whether it is or not. So yeah, that is an interesting aspect of covering games. In addition to not even the fact of having to worry about the particulars of any embargo, and I know you've seen some of the ones I've seen, which are just nuts. Like it's so funny. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say you and I have been there where we will perhaps be covering the same game, and we'll read the embargo. It's like, it feels like 20 times over, and you're like, what does this line mean? Like, can I show this? Can I do this? Can I talk about this? And then you end up getting in touch with your point of contact, and they're like, that's a good question. I don't know. So you're like, well, the deadline's tomorrow. Like, you got to tell me what I can say. You try your best, but yes, parsing that language in embargoes for certain games is very difficult. And even when you think you're in the good, you put stuff out, and you still worry that you're like, oh, maybe I did something wrong.
No, 100%. Like, I read that Kirby embargo for Forgotten Land literally like 100 times, like even up to the minute of the embargo, which was 5 a.m. So I was up. I pulled an all-nighter for that, basically, and I was still paranoid. I'm like, is it okay for us to cover this? Like, I knew it was, but like just something inside me, I'm like, are we sure?
Yes. That feeling never goes away.
No.
I read embargoes, now that I'm back in it and I'm reading embargoes for all sorts of stuff, I'm like, I constantly read them, and I have to tell, like, I'm in charge of telling other people the embargo and making sure they follow it. So I'm like, same way as you. We've been doing this for so long, but we're still nervous when we publish something that we're doing it wrong, and now I have to tell somebody else, no, don't worry, it's okay, when I'm inside being like, is it okay?
Yeah, exactly, right. What's funny too is you mentioned the language particulars of the embargo too, where it's not always entirely clear what they mean. And it's funny because I know in the past, like, I've asked questions to clarify a point in the embargo, and I've seen in future embargoes from that same company my exact like language I was asking about, like, reflected in future embargo. So I'm like, okay, well, that's nice to know that. Yeah.
That whole scene is crazy, and it's something I don't think we'll ever get a hold of, because that language is changing all the time between all different companies. It's not like all the game companies have one embargo guideline that they go with. It's all different. I've gotten in trouble with companies for embargoes when I didn't even sign an embargo. I don't want to I'm not going to say the company's name.
Right.
But this was a few years ago. I had covered a game, and a PR rep for the company got in touch with me, and they were like, you're in big trouble for breaking that embargo. And I was like, I didn't even know there was an embargo.
Yeah,
I never signed an embargo. And they're like, you're not allowed to talk about this. Like, you're going to be in big trouble. We're cutting off ties with you. And I explained, I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You didn't tell me anything. And I was like, here's where I got the news from. And from me covering Go Nintendo, I'm all over the place. So I was on some random Japanese site that had the information, and I went through the translations and got the details. And we were the first ones in America to post the news. And then it took off. So I almost said the name of the company. So the company got in touch with me and were very mad. And then I showed them how it went. And they went radio silent for a couple days. Got in touch with me again, and they were like, we sincerely apologize. The mistake was on our side. We weren't aware, blah, 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 blah. And the following week, they sent me literally a giant box with like 20 of their recent games as an apology.
Dang.
So it's like, that was very nice of them, and I greatly appreciate it. But that kind of stuff gives you embargo trauma.
It does.
I'm getting in trouble, and I didn't even see an embargo.
No, the scariest thing is, I don't know if you've experienced this yourself, it's something you probably have, is like the day of an embargo left, and you get an email from your rep. It's like, oh my god, what's this about? Like, did I do something wrong?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And
I've been there.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. There have been times where an embargo is even changed retroactively. It's like, oh, that thing we said was okay. We actually changed our mind. It's not now. So
and in your case, it's tough because you're like, I've rendered out a video. Like, I can't just like, me with text. I'm like, okay, go in and delete a couple lines. But you're like, like I can't. It doesn't take 5 minutes to make a video. It's the whole big process. Yeah, it's tough. I've gotten those emails. I've gotten those phone calls where I've done, published something. And I'll get a phone call, and I look at my phone, and I see it's a contact from whatever company, and I'm like, oh, God, no. Just that feeling that runs through your body where you're like, I didn't mean to do anything wrong. I thought I was in the clear. But it still happens. It still happens.
Yeah, no matter how many times you read the embargo, it's never enough. So
yeah.
All right, I want to back up a little bit here. I want to talk about how GoNintendo got its start. I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but I want to hear like the origins of the idea for the website, like its humble beginnings, especially because, as I kind of alluded to earlier, like you were one of the first to the scene here. Like, I don't know if there was really any like comprehensive Nintendo coverage, Nintendo site that provided all this coverage of a single company before GoNintendo existed. If it did, I didn't know about it.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you to say. You're making it sound like I'm 80 years old too, which I'm halfway there, so I'm getting. No, it's been a long time. So how it started was all completely by accident. I was going to college to be a systems analyst. I was just like, well, I guess this is what I'm going to do. I wasn't like super passionate about it, but it was a job. So That's what I was going to college for. And at that time, man, I just talked about how you made me sound old, and now I'm going to sound really old.
Uh-oh.
At that time, I had just gotten a job at an arcade in a mall, so I can't date myself anymore.
Well, hold on. Arcades are kind of making a comeback with barcade, so this only happened a few years ago, maybe.
That's true. So I got a job at an arcade because they didn't have anybody, and I was like, this is going to be really exciting. So first day on the job, I go there, and nobody's there. No other employees are there. I'm looking around in the front, in the back, trying to find the guy that hired me to be like, okay, what am I doing? What do I need to do? He's not there. I'm like, somebody will be back. I sat there for, I want to say 45 minutes, and no one came. I called. We didn't have cell phones back then, so I called somebody on the payphone and got nobody. And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. So eventually, after an hour, I just left. I found out like a couple days later that the arcade was closing and the mall was closing, so I guess it just got sprung on him. But anyway, so I was like, I guess I'm not doing that job. And at that time, I wish I could remember the website. There's a website that was specifically covering GameCube stories. Man, I don't remember, but they were looking
at GameCube, right?
No. God, I don't remember what it was. They were looking for new staff, and they wanted a reviewer. And I was like, what the heck? The arcade thing fell apart. While I'm in school, I can try writing for this site. So I submitted them a review based on their criteria, and I made it down into, I guess they narrowed it down to 20 people, and then I wrote something else, and I got, down to the final 3, and I had to write something else again. I wrote that, and then they told me I didn't make it, and I was like, oh, that sucks. But I was like, maybe I'll just run a blog, like a blogger page, for the hell of it, just to have fun and just like, cover some Nintendo news while I'm doing this school stuff. And I was like, then maybe another opportunity will come up with a different site and I can try again. So that's what I did, and I started doing the blogger page. And at the time, there was this way that Blogger used to have. Boy, this is all making me sound old. It was like Blogger page circles, and you would like promote your page within a circle, and they'd promote you, and blah 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 blah. So that went back and forth, and I guess it worked because like people started commenting on the blog, and I was like, how are they even finding this page? And then I don't remember the story, but I remember that Kotaku linked to and sourced us for a story, and I like freaked out. Yeah. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe they even know I exist. This is insanity. And then after that, a lot more people came to the Blogger page and were hanging out there. And, I wasn't making any money. It's a Blogger page. But eventually I was like, man, there's enough people here that I think I should do something with it. And at that time, I had just started the podcast. So we did a thing about asking the small community that was there, I'm going to move to a domain. What should the name be and all that stuff? And they had like a ton of different names. And I think we ended up going with one that me and my friends thought of on their own, which was GoNintendo. There were some other good ones from fans, but for whatever reason, we didn't pick them. So I moved over to GoNintendo, started it there, and continued what I was doing on the Blogger page, and it just kept going really well. Like, I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe this. And I remember submitting... I don't think it's still the same process. Nintendo used to have something on their website that let you submit your website.
Oh, wow.
To be like, I am looking for coverage from you guys, like support from you guys. Can we work together? And you had to submit your website analytics and all that stuff. And I did it, and I heard back from someone the next day, and they were like, yeah, we'll hook you up with a rep. And I was like, mind blown. Yeah. Like over the moon. Could not believe it happened. Still one of my favorite memories, because I was like, I have an actual like connection point to Nintendo now, the company I've been following since I was a little kid. It's just mind-boggling. So I get that coverage. This is still GoNintendo's like new. But again, at this time, I didn't know anything about running a website. Like, I wasn't making any money. There were 0 ads on the page. Like, nothing was happening. And more traffic was coming in. So I was paying a considerable amount of money from my savings to keep hosting up. And I was like, something's going to happen here because I'm going to run out of money.
Yeah, it's ironic. The more successful it is, the more it's costing you to run.
Yeah. And I had gotten a bill that 1 month's hosting was like $1,800. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, what am I supposed to do? And I was like, I'm at the point where the site could really become something, but also I have no money. And my parents were super supportive and still are, obviously. But at the time, for me to be like, you know what? I'm not going to go to school anymore. I'm going to run a Nintendo website. And my parents were like, okay, like for them to do that still blows my mind. But I couldn't then on top of that be like, guys, can I have like $2,000 for the next month? And then after that, I don't know what's going to happen. So what I did was, at the time, I had a huge anime collection. And I was like, I'm going to have to sell all of it. I was like, I'm going to sell it to make money to keep the site going for a couple months. So I did like just a giant box of anime. I put it all. I wasn't selling individually because I didn't have the time. So I went on eBay and listed everything I had and said it was all in great shape. And somebody ended up buying it. So I used that money to keep the site going. And I got almost to the same point, and I was trying to make something happen. And somebody reached out and they said, I am a big fan of the site, and I'm also involved with advertising circles and advertising rings. Again, something that doesn't exist anymore. But they were like, we would like to talk about bringing GoNintendo into it. And we talked, and turns out the guy actually lives in the same state I do, so we met in person and talked. And I was like, you know how it is with ads. I'm like, I need them to survive. I don't want them there because who the hell wants ads? But I'm like, I gotta do it. So I was like, let me do it in a way that at least they're as inoffensive as possible and not pop-ups and all that stuff. So I did it, and money started coming in, and I was like, I can actually afford hosting now. So that's when it really took off. I was like, this is gonna be, at least for the near future, my thing. Like, this is a business. This is happening. And then that's how it's been ever since. It's continued to be at least successful enough for me to pay my bills and keep doing it. So that's good. But not a day goes by where I don't think about how unbelievable the whole process was and how lucky I am to be doing what I'm doing. Like we said, there's horrible hours and we overwork ourselves, but there's great stuff too, and connecting to the community is great, and I've met tons of wonderful people like yourself that I know we don't get to see each other in person a lot, but we still get to talk online, and it's been great in so many different ways just to do this. And that's something that weighed on me when I was considering what I was going to do, that it was such a huge portion of my life that I still had passion for. So I don't want to say start from scratch, but rebuild everything and see how it goes. So
right, you're still working within the same space, just with a different focus to some degree.
Yeah.
Which I think that year break, might help reinvigorate you too, even more so. I imagine you have all these pent up ideas probably from the past year that you can finally now get to, and
when I was going into it, when I was messing with the idea of getting back into it, I wanted to learn new video editing software, so I started doing TikTok videos, just because TikTok's popular, and I was like, I'm on there all the time, so why not? So I used that as an excuse to learn the new editing software, and because I'm like, when I get back to GoNintendo proper, I'm gonna have more time to do video stuff. So I want to, I don't even remember what editor I was using, but it was not, anything good. I was making it work, but now I'm learning my way through DaVinci and making videos with that, and I'm excited to do that stuff for GoNintendo because now I'll have the time to do more stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. I think it was actually, when I saw you making TikToks, that's actually what I think got me onto the platform. Period. I wasn't even using the app, I think, up to that point. Like, let me go
I apologize. I apologize.
I know, really. You owe me hours of my life back now.
Right?
Like weeks.
Yeah.
That app is, weirdly addictive. But what's funny, too, is I've been playing around with it, too. Like, whenever I have a spare time, which isn't too often these days, I've been making little videos for it. And TikTok is such a different platform to ones I'm used to in the past, like especially compared to YouTube, where like the silliest things I spend like the least amount of time on are what blow up on TikTok. Yes. And the videos I spend more time on do nothing on the platform.
Yeah. There's stuff that I'll do. I'm on a little bit of hiatus with TikTok right now just because I have to get the regular site going, but I'm going to go back to it once that's up. But yeah, you'll work on stuff for TikTok. I mean, I'm sure this happens for you with YouTube too. You'll do stuff where you put a lot of time into it and you're like, I'm really proud of this. This is going to be something. And you put it out there and you're like, oh,
nothing.
No one cares.
Yep.
And then, you fart out an idea that took like 10 minutes and everybody's like, this is great. Do more of this. And you're like, I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
It's baffling. And it's kind of to that point, too, that, I think it kind of ties into a little bit of what we were discussing earlier where, you are kind of shaped by what the audience wants. And it's like, not, I love working on passion projects, but at times, too, that's not what gets the views or gets the clicks. And it's difficult to find that balance at times, I imagine, of, what do I want to work on versus what do people actually care about, especially because what people care about is what also pays the bills,
Yeah. I think about that a lot. Like, I've always had a very strict rule personally for myself, and now I'm telling the team, too. No clickbait titles, no clickbait images. Like, none of that. I know that works. And trust me, I get that it works, but I don't want to be a part of that. But then, there's stuff you do that really works for the audience. And it may work for you for a while, but then eventually you might hit a point where you're like, I feel like I need to do this instead of me wanting to do it, because you have other ideas that you want to try, and you might do one of those and nobody gives a crap about it. So you're like,
Right.
I try, I mean, I don't know how you look at it, but I try to think that, I've done stuff, I've written stuff, I've made videos and stuff that people really like, and if I can continue to create that, and make those people happy, then that's what I'll do. And obviously that was a really hard balance for me with old GoNintendo, but with the new version, I'll have more time to mix in stuff I personally want, just because I enjoy making it and think there's some merit to it, and whether it gets views or not, or gets people to read it or not, that's okay, because I can still have time to create the other things that people really want to see. So that's the mix I'm excited about, because I have never really had that.
Yeah, no, that is really great to hear, because it can be difficult to even like reassess or take time to figure out a new direction or modify things, because they're so busy in the day-to-day churn of just doing your job that you don't have time to reflect and figure out like what might work better or work differently. So sometimes, I can't speak for you, of course, but I imagine having taken a year break probably helped in you kind of reassess like what is important, like what do I want to do, striking a better balance of both work and work and life, and also just what you want to do for work, and how you can work with others to kind of like take some of the pressures off of yourself.
Well, that's the perfect example. Like you and I have both been there, where you feel like you're in the routine and you can't get out of it, because if you stop, so many things are going to pile up, and then you'll never get caught up. So you just keep it going. But my situation forced me out of what I was doing, and I was then in a position where I was sitting back and could look at it. So yeah, like if I wasn't forced into my situation, then I would probably still be doing the same thing, and I wouldn't. It would be business as usual, and that's fine. But I had a blessing in disguise in some ways, and now I had the chance to try a different approach. And again, like I was saying earlier, it's still, people know GoNintendo, or at least the people that follow GoNintendo know it as the place where you get as much news as you can possibly stand, and more so. So that's still going to be there. But now there's going to be a whole different side to it. And maybe they'll like some of that content. I'm happy, like, whether people come to us for reviews and other features or not, I'm very happy and proud that that is a part of the site going forward, and I'm very happy and proud with the team that's doing it. So I will be forever happy that we are offering that, because it's not at the cost of what people expect from us, but I also have the room to grow now too. So it's exciting. It's scary, but it's exciting.
I can only imagine, right? So now that at the time of this recording, we're just a few days out from the official relaunch of the website. Tell us, like, how exactly are you feeling right now? Like, are you like super excited for it to finally get out there? Are you looking forward to it? Are you a little bit apprehensive just about, the fact that this is some uncharted territory for you? Just how's that feel like to return back to doing what you love, but with a slightly different focus a year later?
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a whole bunch of different emotions, because it's scary because there's a whole bunch of people involved now, and they all have different voices, which is great. Like, I want those different voices. The only rule I have with all of them is please don't be snarky. There's enough snarkiness on the internet. I don't want any of that.
The entire website is dedicated to it.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it's interesting to think about all the ways it can go and all the stuff I can do, and so I am excited, but also I have like my list of stuff that I need to get done before we launch, and there's still things that I'm doing. I'm down to the last few things now, but there's a lot of moving parts, and it's all new to me, but I think we're in a really good place, and then that is the regular going forward, like, assigning features to people and making sure the news team has what they have, and me getting used to my block of time rather than wake up, go to bed. So that'll That'll be nice. But yeah, it's a whole bunch of emotions. But I know that no matter what, it's a good thing. Like we're not losing anything that we had, and we're only offering more. So it's a good thing. The only thing that makes me super nervous is as it stands right now. This will change in the future, but as it stands right now, I'm the one editing all the features. So we should have like 30 plus features on launch day. So reviews, previews, opinion pieces, all that stuff. So I'm the one that's editing all of them right now. That's going to change in the future because, it's a new team.
Right.
They need time, and then I could be like, okay, you seem like you'd be a good fit for this, and see if they want to do it. But yeah, so I'm editing features, and the whole time it's like imposter syndrome because I'm like, why do I have the final say on this? Why should I be the one that says this is okay?
Do I even know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I'll edit a feature and then I'll read it and I'll be like, is this good? Did I ruin it? What they wrote? But it's my business. So as it stands right now, if I don't do it, no one's gonna do it.
Right. No,
so
exactly.
Just at least for the relaunch, that's what I'm doing. And then, like I said, I'll get to a place where I can entrust other people with that stuff. But
right.
Yeah, it's a lot of new stuff, and news always scary, but it should end up good.
Is there any element in particular you're most excited for? Like something like, yeah, this is really cool that we have planned, or just anything specific or in general that you're just really hyped up about?
I don't know if this is going to sound lame or if people aren't going to believe me. I know you will believe me because you know me, but I'm most excited for we're going to have a feature where literally it's just the new team introducing themselves, a couple paragraphs about themselves, how they got into video games and why they like Nintendo so much. And to me, that's super interesting. Like, I like seeing where people's connection points for Nintendo are. And I'm proud of the new team, and I'm really excited to be like that piece. I guess that's why I'm excited about it. That piece isn't me. It's me going, here's all the people, like, these are the people you should be excited about. Right. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. If I'm going to give a more like traditional answer, one of our writers, so Kingdom Hearts came to the Switch cloud versions, and I was like, basically I said, does anybody in this staff really know and understand the Kingdom Hearts story? Like, I know, people know the main beats or whatever, but like, do you really know what's going on with these things? And one of the staffers was like, oh, I know. And I was like, do you want to write a feature on it? Because they're coming out on the Switch, will be roughly the same time. I was like, maybe like a touch point for people to get into the franchise, or maybe be like, maybe they played a couple of them a long time ago and they've forgotten stuff. I was like, just something to get people going. I was like, can you explain the series and have it actually make sense? And they wrote a feature, and it's amazing. Like, I know it's my site, of course, everybody's stuff is amazing, but like, I read it and I was like, I cannot believe that I legitimately understand what's going on now. And I'm like, going forward, like, I'm like, whatever the next game is, wherever it ends up, I'll be like, now when I go into it, I'll understand what's happening. Now, once I play that game, I'm sure by the end of it, I won't know what's going on. But at least from this point forward, I'll understand. It's such an impressive piece. And as I was editing it, I was like, how does this person, how did they get all this information? Like, I was like, am I just really bad at paying attention? But, I know people saying Kingdom Hearts is confusing isn't like a crazy sentiment. I know a lot of people say that. So look forward to that, because it's a huge piece, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, I feel like future developers of that series may even need to consult the piece themselves to understand what's going on with it. So, well, that all sounds great. I'll have to check out that feature myself as well. And I'm excited for that Nintendo feature you mentioned, the origin story, I guess, of how people came to be Nintendo fans. And that's actually a perfect segue into, how did you become a Nintendo fan? Like, what is your origin story with having Nintendo obviously be a big part of your life?
So, before Nintendo, because I am that old, my parents had an Atari. They had an Atari 7800, so I used to play that as a very little kid with them. Like Pac-Man, Pitfall, stuff like that. Plus, My parents would take me to the arcade every once in a while, and I'd play like Spy Hunter and stuff like that. So I was playing video games before the NES was around here, but I went to my cousin's house one day, and he was like, "I got this new video game, you got to see it." And he had the NES, and I had never heard of it. I didn't know anything about it, and he had, of course, Mario Duck Hunt, the combination.
Yep.
And playing both of those, mind-blowing experience. I was like, this is so far beyond anything I played. Of course, I'm like, what, 7 at the time, 8 maybe. But still, I was like, video games are never going to get better. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. So he played, or he showed me that, and then of course, as any little kid would be, after that, I annoyed my parents. I was like, for my birthday, can I have an NES? Can I please have an NES? And eventually they got me an NES, and I don't remember where they got the bundle, but I want to say like KB Toys or something like that. It was not a bundle that Nintendo did. It was a bundle that KB put together, and it was an NES with Mario and Duck Hunt, but they also included Zelda 2.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know anything about Zelda, but that's the bundle my parents got me. So I played through Zelda 2 before I played the first Zelda, and I played through it with my mom, because I was, again, like 9 at the time, I guess, and I'd never played anything like that. And I have vivid memories of doing that, but just that connection point from my cousin showing me the NES to me getting my own, ever since then, like, I've just been, I don't know, Nintendo's been something special to me. Obviously, they're still special to me because I'm almost 40 and I make my living talking about Nintendo. So, and obviously they're important to you too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not far behind you in terms of age, and I remember seeing, Duck Hunt. I mean, I was just thinking now when you mentioned the compilation cartridge, I'm like, what an amazing cartridge that was. You get Mario and you get Duck Hunt, 2 entirely different experiences. But,
yeah.
One's focused on a longer form, and the other's like a short arcade action.
Yeah.
Using a light gun that's still impressive me to this day.
Well, yeah, when my cousin pulled out the zapper, I couldn't even fathom what was going to happen next. I saw Duck Hunt on the title screen, but I didn't think he was going to pull out like a toy gun and like shoot at the screen. I was like, how's this even working?
I remember too seeing Duck Hunt, like even the animation of it, like seeing this cartoon character dog like sniffing around and jumping behind bushes. I'm like, that looks amazing. It's like playing a cartoon, which I imagine for you I came off the Atari 2600, and you mentioned was it 7800?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I mean, that was a huge upgrade from what we were playing on that console.
Massive. Yeah, I mean, Pac-Man on those systems was not anything like Pac-Man in the arcade, at least visually. But yeah, that jump from Atari stuff to the NES was mind-boggling. Yeah. I was just talking with friends about that kind of stuff, like, because we are old. The jump between systems used to be, like, it was momentous, because instantly you were like, this is something that's impossible, at least visually and sound-wise at the time. Impossible before. Like, getting the Super Nintendo and playing Super Mario World, I was like, I imagined how much better games would be, and it doesn't come anywhere close to what Super Mario World is. And unfortunately, like, nowadays, this makes me sound like a boomer, but like, I don't think we have that same feeling. Like, going from a PlayStation 4 to a PlayStation 5, like, first off, I play all video games on all platforms. I have all the systems. I do love Nintendo, but I play everything. I enjoy video games in general. But, like, at least visually, from PS4 to PS5 or Xbox One to Xbox Series X or anything like that, the jumps aren't so big that you're like, wow, instantly you can tell. But back in the day, that was a real thing. And I can remember when Nintendo said, right around the GameCube era, that they were gonna move away from, like, the horsepower race, basically. Right. And because I was, a stupid teenager at the time, I was like, I've never heard anything worse. This is the worst decision. I was like, that's it, Nintendo's doomed. And I always sound like an internet person. Nintendo's doomed. I was like, that's it. They're gonna, whatever their next system is, they're done. Not that the GameCube sold all that great comparative to the things out back then,
Right.
but then they put out the Wii, and obviously that was a huge hit, and that really changed my way of thinking, because I was like, they're right. I thought personally that I was thinking of games in the wrong way. I was like, generation to generation has to be more than just about visual power or horsepower, because you're going to hit a point where it's the law of diminishing returns. You're not going to... Things can only look so good or so real. And you get more towards like Uncanny Valley stuff. So I think that's another reason why I just grow to appreciate Nintendo so much more. They don't ever really go for a realistic approach. They go for something more artistic. And I think it helps their games like remain more timeless. Like, we still look at Wind Waker now, we're like, that's still a gorgeous game. But you look at things like, I'm trying to think of stuff that came out around Wind Waker's time. I can't off the top of my head. But, you go back and look at something like, let's say, Metal Gear Solid 2. Now, back then, you were like, whoa, this looks amazing. But today, you're like, this looks like garbage.
Right. No,
but at the time, you were like, it's not going to get any better. Graphics can't get better.
That's a great point. I mean, yeah, you brought up all of good points there, actually. Like, I just saw a Twitter post a couple days ago comparing the teeth of the main character from Horizon in the PS4 versus PS5 version. And I'm like, yeah, the teeth look great on PS5, but the fact that you zoom into her mouth to see that difference speaks to your point. Like, we're not getting the massive leaps anymore that we used to. Like, I mean, I remember... For me, one of the most mind-blowing experiences I had as a kid was playing Mario 64. Like, seeing that game for the first time, like Mario in a 3D environment, you can go in any direction. That blew my mind. Like, I think I was, it hit at just the right age, too, for me, where, like, I wasn't at all jaded or anything or used to this type of stuff. It was a whole new experience, and that just, it like, expanded my horizons for, like, what a game could be. And, of course, now you look at it, it's totally dated. Like, it still looks, decent for the era it came out in, but you can't ignore that's a dated game. And it's kind of, it's a little sad to me. And again, I don't want to speak too much on behalf of like younger gamers, because I'm sure they have their own experiences I can't appreciate. Growing up with the games, but like, I feel like they're not exposed to those massive leaps. They may never have that Mario 64 of their era, and that's a bummer, because we were getting those kind of experiences constantly as kids. Like, Ocarina of Time did it again a couple years later. Even Majora's Mask, it's like, wow, they're doing all these new things here. Whereas now, just because we're so far into the industry, it's just, it's just more iterating at this point rather than revolutionizing how things go, especially in the AAA space.
Yeah, it's, I don't want to say it's disappointing, because it's the nature of the beast. Like, if you're going to chase improved visuals, it's just not going to be as impressive each time you go back for the next iteration of whatever installment it is. The innovation has to come from, I was going to say we're going to sound like Nintendo fanboys, but that's what we are. It's
totally.
It's like, the innovation has to come from controls or gameplay mechanics or stuff like that. Just like you said with Horizon. Don't get me wrong. The new Horizon is absolutely gorgeous. But the Horizon before it was also a gorgeous game too. And it's not so much better that it's like a huge wow factor. But on top of that, like you said, with the teeth in Aloy's mouth, like... Yes, it's impressive, but when I'm playing a game, I'm thinking about how much fun the game is, and if somebody asked me, how's the game, I wouldn't be like, she's got teeth in her mouth. Like, that's not, I'm not going to go back so many years from now and replay the game because of the teeth in her mouth. I'm going to replay it if it's a fun game. So, I haven't played a new one yet. I played the last one. I'm sure it's excellent. I saw the reviews were very good, but... Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm crapping on today's games or games that focus or games that provide realistic visuals or anything like that. That's all warranted and valid. It's just that, like we said, because we're from an older generation, those leaps don't really happen anymore, and the jump between generations aren't so visually different that you can tell just with looking right off the bat that it is new hardware. Like, NES to Super Nintendo, instantly tell. I don't want to keep using Nintendo stuff, but like PlayStation to PlayStation 2, you could tell, like, maybe not as big, but certainly big enough to be like, okay, this is a major difference. But yeah, that's not. My one friend was talking about it, saying like he still plays games all the time and plays a ton, but he was saying like he misses that excitement, and that not being a part of games anymore has taken him out of games a little bit, because when a new system's coming out, he is excited to play whatever games come to those systems, but it's not that same, just right off the bat, wow factor. And I had that same moment with Super Mario 64 too. Like, I remember just playing in 3D was nuts, and like I remember like shimmying across ledges because I was so scared to fall off, and like like physically feeling that, being like, oh my god, I gotta be careful, like that kind of feeling, which is we can't have those feelings again. I mean, I guess VR is the thing.
Yeah, I was actually just going to bring up VR. Like, that's probably the closest we can get. And I feel like, again, no, this is not entirely because of the shift to 3D. It was largely because of our age, too. But I feel like the moments you were just describing, even I don't get those to the same degree in VR. Like, when we were playing Mario 64 for the first time, like, that felt like VR then. But no, you're totally right that I think, VR is the closest I've kind of had, like, re-experiencing that, like games like Half-Life Alyx, or even playing Resident Evil 4 again in VR, and of course seeing other people's reactions too. Like, my dad is obsessed with VR now. Resident Evil 4 used to be his favorite game, and now he's playing it again in VR. He's played through like 30 times by this point. I'm like, I don't know. He's got to be in heaven. Yeah, exactly, he is. And that's something, I myself, I would love to see Nintendo explore the space more. Like, they dabbled with it a little bit with Labo VR, and I had a blast of those experiences. And I wonder if, I'm curious how you feel about that. Like, do you think that's something Nintendo should explore? Do you have much experience with VR yourself, even, as well, or?
This is great, because people are going to hear this section of the video and be like, these two are in cahoots, because we have a feature at launch on GoNintendo about franchises that would be a good fit for VR from Nintendo.
Yes.
I have a PSVR, and I have a Quest and a Quest 2. So I've played a lot of VR stuff, and I've had those same moments. I don't know if they are as close as what, like you said, what we used to experience, but it's closest to nowadays. And I do think there's a lot of stuff that's fun in VR, and I do think that Nintendo could do some really cool stuff in VR. It's just my problem. Well, if Nintendo was going to do VR, I would imagine the focus would be greatly asymmetric, because Nintendo loves that, and VR seems ripe for that. Something going on the TV, and the player in VR doing something else, and there's VR games that exist like that now, so I know Nintendo would probably love to explore that, and I'd be excited to see that. My only worry is that, it's Nintendo, so I don't worry, because I don't think they would just go all in on VR and like drop local multiplayer stuff and all that, because that's a core value of Nintendo's. They have supported local multiplayer longer than most others and continue to do so. So I don't think they would do that. But yeah, anytime I play something in VR, especially in a genre that Nintendo makes games in, I'm like,
Astrobot?
Yes, exactly. It's something I play where I'm like, I would love to see what Nintendo could do here. That Astrobot is wonderful. That platformer is so good. Love it. Absolutely adore it. But the whole time I played it, I was like, man, could you imagine if Nintendo did this? Like,
right?
Nintendo's got that something that's like, I don't know if it's charm or expertise or a mix of those things and other stuff, but you just know they could do something in VR where you're like, man, look at, like, this makes such a huge difference, and it'd be just that much more immersive. And obviously there's Nintendo franchises that would make better sense in VR than some, but the guy that wrote the article came up with like some points where I was like, oh, like stuff that I didn't even think of, where I was like, he's really selling me on this idea. He was saying like even just a straightforward port of Metroid Prime in VR would be great. Just like looking up and having like the raindrops fall on your visor and everything, like just those little immersive moments. He was talking about those, and I was like, oh, I want to play this so bad. And he was saying Punch Out would be a great one, which it would. How many VR boxing games are there? But there's nothing like Punch Out.
No.
That'd be a ton of fun if we got like not a VR taste, but Punch Out on the Wii had motion controls, and that's the way I played. I liked it. So obviously a VR game would be the same way. So there's some sort of groundwork. And Nintendo has interest in... They have to have some slight passing interest in VR for them to do it through Labo. And obviously the Virtual Boy, which wasn't VR, but they got something. There's something there. Some people at Nintendo see something in VR. I don't know. Can you see them doing their own VR headset? I can't see that.
That's difficult too, because even Sony, like, which has been massively, relatively well. Their PSVR was pretty successful for a VR platform.
Yeah.
Even that only reached a small demographic of the overall PlayStation user base. Yeah. And imagine Nintendo's looking at those numbers and being like, well, does this really make a ton of sense to sell another accessory as much as the Switch itself for VR? However, I can't help but wonder if, like, Labo VR did kind of maybe point at a possible direction for it, where maybe they do produce a self-contained, like, cheapish headset. Not cardboard this time, but it uses the guts of the Switch entirely, like including the screen, possibly possibly with a upgraded Switch 2, wherever the heck the next Switch ends up being. Switch Pro, but imagine like having a higher definition screen. You already have quasi motion tracking in the Joy-Cons. They can just kind of like upgrade everything. Maybe that'd be a cheap way of doing it. You just have a plastic headset you slot the Switch into, and there you go. So.
Yeah, that I could definitely see. Like a platform, like they did with Labo. A platform for VR that exists outside of VR. So you would have the thing that does VR, but it wouldn't be the only thing that you're doing with it, and it wouldn't be the only way to play it. Like, just like they did with Labo, but more expanded. Because just like you said, I really enjoyed that Labo stuff, and obviously the Labo VR stuff. It wasn't the most comfortable to play. You could see like little glints of what Nintendo could do with VR, exactly. And you played it and you're like, yeah, I want them to do this. So, crazier things have happened with Nintendo, surely. Games that didn't see release for 20 years that come out eventually, and what's crazier, Nintendo doing VR or Mother 3 getting localized? I'm gonna go Mother 3 is crazier. So
yeah, I think Mother 3 is crazier. So that's a good meter to have. It's like, all right, we're not in Mother 3 territory here, so maybe it could happen.
Last Direct, they did the Mother stuff, and I was like, okay,
is this
Earthbound Beginnings? Oh no, in real life, I was like, no, it's not gonna happen. But still, when that stuff comes up, you're like, is this the time? Oh no,
not yet. Still holding a little hope out for it, but I'm not expecting it. But and it's funny too, getting back to the VR thing, just because like Nintendo's basically, as you said, like been flirting with the idea forever in any number of ways. Whether it was Virtual Boy being one of the first people on the scene for virtual reality, or even motion controls, which are a huge part of VR, and they were there in 2006, with the Wii. Yeah. And of course, having Labo VR, basically a baby's version of VR. Even though I still loved it, like I played through Breath of the
baby's first
entirely.
VR.
Exactly. So I hope it happens.
Well, like that stuff. I want them to try. And the thing with Nintendo is they may have an idea, be it in a system or game, that doesn't connect, and Nintendo will never say, okay, we're done with that. Right. It seems like Nintendo is more often like, we're gonna make them like this. So like, from Virtual Boy to Labo, but more importantly, from Wii U to Switch, like they were like, there's something in this Wii U idea, and we can make this work. And they revisited it, repackaged as a Switch, which obviously expands upon what the Wii U could do. But still, you see the connecting points where they're like, okay, we missed the mark, but we still believe in our idea and still think we have something. So with VR, Labo wasn't a massive seller, at least on Nintendo's scale of sellers, but it had an audience, and people were surprised what Labo could achieve through the Switch itself. So you'd have to think maybe Nintendo's like, yeah, there's something here. We'll revisit it.
I sincerely, some of the most fun I've ever had in VR was sticking my head in that bird's butt and flying around, like leaning around with a wind pedal blowing gusts of air into my face.
Now that's what gaming is all about, right there.
It really is. Well, speaking of the Switch itself, we are recording this literally right after the Switch's 5th anniversary. It's been out for 5 years now, and I was curious as to, since you've been covering Nintendo for a huge part of your lifespan, and playing it for almost Nintendo's like entire modern existence.
Yeah.
What do you think of Nintendo's current state in the industry, and what are you kind of expecting from Nintendo moving forward here? Now that we are, at the midway point of the Switch's life cycle, what are you kind of thinking might happen here in Nintendo's future?
Man, I remember when the Switch came out, and sales were very good at the start. but then they stayed good. And like 6 months out, analysts were saying like, the way this is trending, this could be 100 million seller. And at the time, I was like, I really hope so, but I don't know. I was like, I think it's too early. And now look at where we are. So,
Also
like,
the Wii.
What a yeah, right? Like the Wii, like a cultural phenomenon. And the Switch is doing better and is still selling really well. Like, it's crazy to me. I mean, as far as Switch years go, if you look at it in terms of software, especially first-party software, like, this year looks like it's going to be potentially the best, or at least the second best since the system launched. So, things got shifted around because of the pandemic and all that, but now, like, we're getting a year where it's loaded. There's so much stuff that's coming out that people are excited for and have been waiting for, and stuff we didn't even know existed. So, I don't know. Like, it's gonna be. I don't know what would, obviously as time rolls on, it's going to slow down, but it's doing so well right now, and there's so much stuff to look forward. I mean, look, Breath of the Wild 2, whatever the heck it ends up being called, is this year. Like, you could say that one title alone, and you're done. Like, that's it. People are still picking apart Breath of the Wild and doing all kinds of crazy stuff in it right now, so. Yeah, that's a huge motivator, and I'm sure that will be a system seller for the people out there who still haven't managed to pick up a Switch.
Right.
So, like, the future is extremely bright, and what comes, like, after this year, I got no clue, but, like, you've covered Nintendo very long, just like I have, and there's always the people that say, Nintendo's doomed, they're not doing anything, this system's gonna fail, and, that those people will always be there. Obviously... before the Switch came out, the Wii U did so poorly that people were like, Nintendo's dead. Then the Switch came out and people were picking up on the idea, and they were like, I like this system. Now we've gone so far past that point where the Switch is an undeniable huge success that people are like, it's time to knock Nintendo down a peg. Like, they're ready to see them fail.
Exactly.
So the whole cycle of success. But yeah, to tell you the honest truth, obviously I was sad to see Nintendo's position with the Wii U when it faltered with sales. And the software was there. Its system had great games, but marketing and technology-wise, right off the bat, I feel like they fumbled all of that, and people just never connected with it. Retailers weren't even advertising it correctly. They were thinking it was an add-on for the Wii, and I can't blame them because it just was fumbled marketing from the beginning. But I never count Nintendo out. I never did in the past, and I don't now. I have no reason to, because Nintendo always shows that when they do have a misstep, they correct course in a big way. And I'm not the only one that says Underdog Nintendo is the best Nintendo, because they come out and they really show you why they not just deserve a place in the industry, but understand it in a way that a lot of other companies don't. So
Right.
I think the future is going to be bright, and if there's bumps along the way, that's fine. That makes things even more interesting. So whatever's going on, I'll be there covering it. But as a fan, I'll definitely be there playing. They have yet to disappoint me. Everybody has their minor issue. Even Nintendo fans, whether they want to admit it or not, have their issues with Nintendo. Areas where they need a lot of work. But when it comes to, for me, when it comes to like core creation of games and just games that I feel put the focus on fun first, I feel that's what Nintendo does best.
So that's why you're still a Nintendo fan after all these years?
That's right. Yeah, if I'm not so... Nintendo is definitely part of my identity, but I'm not so much immersed in Nintendo that if they put out, like a year's worth of bad games where I'd be like, no, they're good, and like pretending and like turning and crying so people couldn't see me. Yes, I still greatly love Nintendo's games and have a ton of fun. I just played the Kirby demo today, and I was like, man, I'm so excited for this game.
It's so good. I have not seen, like, it seems like I've captured the internet by storm too. Like, my Twitter feed is just constant Kirby, and with people like finding it just to be so charming, as you touched on earlier with Nintendo games in general, but this game in particular is really ramping that up.
Yes.
And even the visuals, like, again, it's on dated hardware, obviously. It's 5 years old inherently, and it was already we compare to the other consoles at the time, the game looks good. Like, it's a
Yes.
good-looking game.
I remember when Galaxy came out on the Wii, and that was dated hardware, and I was like, man, this game looks good for
So
this
good.
system. And
Yep.
Kirby gives me the same kind of vibes. I was editing footage today for something I'm working on, and as I'm editing, I'm like, this game looks really nice. It's colorful, it's bright, it's simplistic, but it's got a strong style to it. It looks good. That's something you can like. I feel like you can look at Nintendo games and you're like, that looks fun. Like, I'm gonna play that. That looks fun.
Yeah, it's a great way of looking at it. Like, you can just feel the fun through like screenshots or videos.
Yeah. I mean, you show me Kirby. What else do you need?
That's all you need. I want a whole Kirby game, even. Like, I want a Kirby Mario Kirby. There we go.
We got Captain Toad Treasure Tracker through
Good point.
the side bits in Super Mario. What was that? What was that? 3D World.
3D World. Yep.
Yeah, so, if Kirby takes off, maybe we'll get a whole Kirby's Air Ride.
Oh my God, that's how you bring it back. Yes, that needs to happen now. Dear God.
Take that one for free, Sakurai.
Well, speaking of Nintendo games in general, have you been playing? Actually, I'll open up to any game really. Over the past year, have you been playing much that stood out to you? Like, what are some of your favorite games? If you had time in the rebuild of GoNintendo.
This is the first year where I've actually started to keep track, like keep an actual list of stuff I've played. Because, like, I'm sure you do too, and many other people, I have an enormous backlog of stuff. So I'm trying to mix that with new stuff too. So I haven't played a ton, but I am playing stuff. I'm playing, I just played the Kirby demo, like I said, but you know what I'm playing that I never played ever, and I'm going to out myself here, and people are going to say things. I've never played Chrono Trigger, and I'm playing it for the first time.
Hey, as long as you're fixing it, that's what matters.
Yeah, I've listened to the soundtrack so many times, but I never, and I was like, I hope nobody talks to me about this, because I didn't play it, because, I'll talk about how much I love the soundtrack, and if somebody gets into the conversation of the game, I'm just like, I got nothing to
Right.
say. So I'm playing through that. I'm near the end, but man, what an amazing experience. And I also rated another wrong last year. I never played Earthbound, and I finally played it all the way through.
Oh my God.
It's the year of the RPG!
No kidding. I have a confession. I've never actually fully beat Earthbound. I always get up to like the final third of the game, and I don't know what happens, but I never finish it, so I need to do that. But what did you think? Was it...
Oh my God. So I went to play it a couple times as a kid, and I didn't get anywhere, because the beginning of the game is pretty tough, yeah.
Especially that freaking ant boss. That first ant boss kept destroying me as a kid.
And as a kid, as a very young kid, I didn't know what RPGs were. Never heard of the genre. I just talked about this on Patreon. I was telling a story about how, I'll tell it very quickly. My cousin had a game for the Game Boy, and he told me he didn't know how to play it. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, it's a video game. I know how to play video games. How can you not know? And it was Final Fantasy Legend 2, whatever it's called now. And I remember going to play it, and I was like, how do I jump on people? How do I swing my sword? I'm like, all I see are text boxes, and then I'm like, I'm dead. I don't understand. I was like, this game must be broken. I don't get it. So from that point on, for much of my life, I was just afraid of RPGs, because I'm like, I suck at them. I don't get it. I know I'm doing everything wrong. I have horrible tactics, but the last year plus, I've been breaking myself out of that, and I was like, it's time to really right my wrong. And I played Earthbound, and I would put Earthbound in my top 10 games of all time. I don't know if I played it at just the right time for me. Obviously, it's I don't even want to say a cult classic now. It went from a cult classic to something bigger now, I think. But
yeah.
I get it. I get the praise. I get why so many developers cite it as something that inspired them. Man, do I get it. What an amazing experience. Totally regret not, getting through it when I played it younger. Great. Fantastic. I can't say enough good stuff about it. So, yeah, that was an amazing experience. So after that, I was like, time to knock some other RPGs off the list. And I went for Chrono Trigger. And then I'm thinking I got to do Final Fantasy VI after that, because I haven't played that through. The whole RPG genre in general, I have, no touchstones, but I'm getting there. I'm looking at my list off the side. I played Death's Door, which was fantastic. Death's Door was so good. And I played The Gunk, the game by Thunderful.
Right, that's right.
That was really good. I like that a lot.
Made.
And what am I playing? You know what I don't think I've played more. I don't think I've played any other game more than I've played Fortnite. I'm still playing Fortnite. And the reason right when the pandemic started and we weren't seeing anybody, I wasn't seeing friends, and I used to see friends all the time.
Right.
And Fortnite is something that's on every system, and we can all hop in and play together and talk. So it was basically like an excuse to talk, and Fortnite was the backdrop. Oh. And that's still what I use it for today. Don't get me wrong, I play the game and I have fun with it, but while we're in there playing, we're talking about, any number of things, what we're watching on TV or getting together soon or just, catching up with people. So it's a great facilitator for that. I've played so much of it, and everybody plays it. Everybody that I'm friends with plays it. I play it with family too. It's just been great. On the flip side, I played Halo Infinite. I didn't play the campaign yet because I want to play that co-op.
Oh, but yeah, that'll be fun.
I played multiplayer in that, and that is not a game that facilitates any kind of conversation because it's way too intense. Fortnite has downtime, and you can hide in a corner of the map somewhere and dance with each other. And Halo is you are going and you're going to die and you're going to do it over again right away. So, don't get me wrong, I play Halo Infinite and I like it, but it is stressful. And when I'm talking to friends when I play that game, we are talking about the game. Go here, get the flag, come pick me up in the Warthog. There's no conversation about other stuff. So, I'm trying to think of other stuff. That's the stuff that sticks out in my mind. But,
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, what was your, did you have a favorite Nintendo game from the past year? A modern Nintendo game?
Oh my God. What even came out? I would have to look at a list of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's all, especially in the pandemic time, it's all a blur.
It really is. It really is. Well, obviously Animal Crossing was a big part of that.
That was a big one, yeah.
I'm trying to think. I played all the major Nintendo stuff that came out, but really that whole time is an absolute blur. If I saw a list of what came out, I'm sure I could pick something out. But Animal Crossing is the one thing that sticks out in my mind.
Are you still playing it?
No.
Okay.
Now I'm too busy to get into any of that. Because that's what everybody hits the same point with Animal Crossing. You play it for a really long time, be it a year or a few years, but you hit that point where it's you miss a couple days and you're like, oh, if I go back, they're gonna be mad at me, and then you're like, and I got to do this and I got to take care of that before I can get to this, and you're like, oh, I can't go back. You say, it happens with every game, really. It just Animal Crossing, you end up playing longer, but you hit that point where you're like, okay, I think I've had my fun, and I'm gonna wander off and see what else there is out there. Oh, I can't believe I forgot this. I'm playing Elden Ring.
Oh, that's a big one right now. Yeah.
Yes, and I am very much not good at that genre, but I like it. I really liked Bloodborne.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm gonna give the reviews for Elden Ring were phenomenal, and they were the best open world since Breath of the Wild, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. So I'm playing it. It's kicking my butt, obviously, not like I'm in the minority there. Lots of people are having a tough time with it, but it's still fun. Just I get to a boss that I can't take, and I'll try him 20 times, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go out and explore and level up in different ways, and I'll come back eventually. But just the exploring and seeing what's out there, that's great. It sucks when a giant bear comes out of the ground out of nowhere and kills you in one hit, but it's still fun. Day. I think it says a lot for the game when, it's supposed to be that hard as nails, unapologetic, yet even if you're not into that, you can still have fun with it.
Yeah, that seems to be one thing in particular that this game does better than the others.
Yes.
That, you can, work around that. You can ignore enemies now or run away.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I do a lot of that.
I've been hearing from everyone that like just everyone seems to be praising this game. So I need to. Even my barista at Starbucks has been like, you need to play Elden Ring. I'm like, all right, fine. I guess I'll go play it once I get some time here.
Well,
so.
yeah, add my name to the list. I think you'll at the very least appreciate the open world aspect of it because it's a really cool design. I like that a lot.
Getting back real quick too, when you mentioned talking, you enjoyed playing Fortnite to talk with your friends. You had mentioned earlier that I think one of your favorite things of at least a previous version of Go Nintendo was the podcast. And I was curious, how does that fit into the new version? Is that coming back if it hasn't already? Are there any changes to it? Tell me more. And are you excited to get back to it?
I'm very excited to get back to it. It is 100% coming back. It should be back the week after we launch. That we used to record on Saturdays, so it should be that Saturday we'll be back. I have to like hook up the mixing board and everything and make sure everything still works and I remember how to do it. But yeah, I always love doing the podcast and I still love doing it here because we get into great conversations about games, don't get me wrong, but just stupid conversations in general that are a lot of fun. So I really appreciate that. Is there going to be new stuff? We're going to have a new intro song. The guy who did our last intro song, which I loved, I reached out to him again because I was like, this is like a restart, so why don't we have a new song? So I don't know if everybody's like this or not, but when I see a movie or a TV show or play a game and they all start with like a familiar jingle, like, the Marvel movies have their Marvel logo song and, Legend of Zelda has a particular song that starts all of them off. If I go into one of those experiences and that song isn't there, a little bit of me is like, oh, like I'm a little disappointed that it's not there. I'll ease into liking whatever's there. Right. So when the show comes back, I'm going to give people one more time with the old song because they said they liked the old song. And I'm going to tell them, okay, next week we're going to a new song just so they're prepared. But we're going to have a new song. I love, we have a soundboard on our podcast filled with all kinds of stupid sound clips. And I love that kind of stuff. So we're going to have more of that. We're going to, for the last couple years, which has been like one of my favorite things, there's a common thread of my favorite things. They're all dumb. We've had a robot that's a part of the crew, and he'll talk with us through like canned phrases, and it makes me cry from laughing. It's just so stupid. And I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten with people saying, "Is the robot coming back?" And I'm like, "Don't you worry, he'll be back." So we're doing more with that. And then I was thinking about like mixing up the format because we had a very defined format. But after a year gone, sure, there's ideas I'm considering. The first show back, it's just going to be like very much a welcome back. Like, Here's what we've been up to. We're glad to be back. And then the week after that, we'll really get into some sort of cadence. So there's new things I'm going to try out. But the stuff people really seem to love is still going to be there. So people loved music trivia. We're still going to do that. People sending questions. We're still going to do that. And the only other really big thing is, I don't know if I can say who yet, but I can say that the podcast got officially picked up by a company. So we're going to be like under their entertainment umbrella. So I'm super excited about that. It's a huge deal. And they've been great by saying like, all we need you to do is come back this year. They were like, we're not giving you a set date or anything like that. And most importantly, they said, you don't have to change anything. It's not like they want you to be a different show or anything like that. So all the same stupid stuff we did will still be there. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. So that's a fun thing to come back with.
Well, that's super exciting. I've been looking forward to it myself because I need something to listen to during my workouts now. So
that's what people have been telling me. They're like, man, I used to listen on the way to work or to school or any of that stuff. And they're like, now I don't know what to do with myself. They're like, I've been listening to older episodes over and over again. So just with the podcast in particular, it's been really surprising how much people have said that show means to them. Because with Go Nintendo in general, the website, people have told me how much the site means to them. And, that's absolutely amazing. And I can never thank those people enough. And I'm honored that they feel that way. But with the podcast, I love GoNintendo in general, but with the podcast, I love the podcast as much as other people say. Because I guess when I'm doing the site, I'm typing and thinking about how much work there is. When I do the podcast, it's just like I sit down and I talk, and it's just fun. So I get that when people say that stuff. So I'm just as excited to get back to that as people are telling me they are to hear it. So you'll have something to listen to during your workout.
Well, I appreciate that, Kevin. And I know, and it's a great way for people to just get to know you too, especially in the previous version of GoNintendo, because you were so busy often working on news that the podcast, I would imagine, was one of the few ways people could really get your kind of unfiltered thoughts on everything that's happening in the industry. And
yeah, I did that very much on purpose. Like, the site was for the news, and I'd slip in a little opinion here or there, but the podcast was my place to share my detailed opinion. So
that's all. Yeah, it's all very exciting. So I think we're about out of time here, but I just want to do a quick rapid fire round of questions here, Kevin, for you. Just a few final ones to wrap it up. So first off, I gotta know. I may have asked you before, but I probably forgot. Your alias is Rawmeat Cowboy. Where the heck did that come from?
Okay, so as quick as I can tell it, because this is rapid fire. Long time ago, I was in high school. Big high school. Lots of people in the hallway. Trying to find friends. Mm-hmm. Our friends and I were trying to think of something to yell to each other to find each other in the hallway. I don't know how it came up, but somebody was like, how about I yell raw, and if you're in there, you yell meat, and we can meet up with each other. So that's what I did. So raw meat was a thing with our friends. And then years later, when America Online Instant Messenger was a thing, I went to make raw meat my name, and it was taken. And I was like, I got to think of something that no one would ever put after that. And I put Cowboy, and nobody took it. And then I ran with it, and it's stayed ever since. Most people, like, if they're talking to me on the site now, will call me Kevin or RMC. But Rawmeat Cowboy is still there. Like, that's still my personal email. That's going to be with me till the day I die. I've sent many a business email with the Rawmeat Cowboy email address.
It's so good. That's just how people know you now. All right, what game are you most excited for from Nintendo coming up that we know about?
Well, I don't want to say Kirby because that's a cop-out. Everybody's going to say Zelda.
It's true.
Man, what is you know what? This shows how out of the loop I am. What's the name of the new Strikers game? What's the official name?
Battle League.
That I'm so excited for, because for years I've been talking about how I wanted another one of those, and when they showed that in the direct, I was blown away. So I'm calling that one. That one I'm not a sports guy by any means outside of professional wrestling, whatever people want to call that. But man, did I love that game! Those two games were so good. So I'm really excited for that.
So much personality too.
Yes.
All right, favorite Mario game.
Oh man, these are rapid fire.
We don't need an explanation. We don't need the explanation. Just the one decisive title that's the best of them all.
Can I say two that are tied?
Sure. Yeah, go for it. That's fine.
Galaxy 2.
Yes.
And Super Mario 3D World.
Interesting combination.
I know that's controversial on that one, but yes.
All right. Well, Galaxy 2 is definitely one of my top ones as well.
So amazing.
Favorite Zelda.
I gotta go one. I can't do another two again.
Wow. Okay. I see.
No, not the first one. I love the first one. No, but I wanted to give two answers. I'm not doing that. Man, this is so tough.
I'm sorry. I didn't think this would be so agonizing.
I'm gonna go Link's Awakening.
Oh wow! All right, good choice. Yeah,
I love Link's Awakening.
Unique ones. It's great. What's your favorite non-Nintendo game?
These are so tough. Putting me on the spot.
You know it. That's what we do here.
There's so many.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Maybe some of your favorites, just like a handful.
Okay. Favorites. That's easier. Legend of the Mystical Ninja, the Super Nintendo one.
Nice.
Super Castlevania 4.
All right.
Undertale.
And that ties into perfectly into your Earthbound playthrough. So.
Yes. I feel like I got to give one more.
You don't have to. I think you're good if you want to end it there.
Yeah. And see, this is very stressful for me.
No, I'm causing you
it's okay.
distress.
It's okay.
All right. This one may be, well, actually, I don't know. It may be a little easier. What's your overall favorite Go Nintendo memory from, like, running the website over the entire lifespan? And if not a favorite, like, just something that stands out to you over having run it for as long as you have, and now that it's on the verge of coming back.
I have one, but I don't know if I can say it. You know what? I'm going to say it. Whatever. I'm going to say
All right.
it. This is a Reggie related. Oh, there's two of them. This is a Reggie related moment. This is a long time ago. It was
just to make sure. Just to be clear, do you have time for this? I don't want to overkeep you.
No. I'm okay.
Okay,
I'll make it very quick. Had a. This was before the Wii came out. This was a press event for the Wii in New York. First press event I got invited to, so I was like super excited. Over the weekend, over that weekend prior to this event, not a lot of news goes on the weekend. We were posting some fun stuff, and I posted something that was clearly a joke. That was about it was a joke story just for fun on the weekend about how a custodian found a crumpled up piece of paper in a garbage can, and it had Reggie's full notes for the Revolution event. And it was clearly a joke, marked as a joke. I told people it was a joke. Posted that, didn't think anything of it. Next day, I got a call from my rep saying that I was no longer invited to the event because that story made its way to Reggie. And I don't know that he was personally upset about it. I don't think he was. But just that was out there and it made its way to Reggie. Filtered back to me, and they were like, "You are not invited anymore." So I was destroyed, and I apologized. I was like, I never even thought anyone would take this seriously. Right. Nobody on the site took it seriously, but a few more days passed, and they were like, they've reversed the decision. You can go. So that was a great moment. And then fast forward 2 years later, and Reggie wrote something for GoNintendo. So it all worked out.
Holy crap! I missed that. I need to check that out. That's amazing.
There was a website that was doing a week of hate about video games, and it made me so mad that I did a week of love, and I reached out to everybody I could possibly reach out to. And my pie in the sky, biggest hope, and one I thought would never get was Reggie, and Reggie wrote something. So
wow, that is amazing. What an amazing turnaround and
from the lowest lows to the highest highs.
and that first half, I mean, that must have sucked being uninvited before you knew it was reversed.
Yes,
but at the same time, like I don't know if you felt this way or not, but hearing it separately or outside of it, it's like that's kind of cool that your silly little story made it that high up, you know.
Yes, I was shocked. I was shocked that it made it. They were specific in saying it made it to his desk. He knows about it, and I was like, out of everything I've done, why this? Why did this happen?
The one thing at the worst possible time, too.
Yeah,
amazing.
It all worked out.
That's good to hear. And speaking of working out, I'm sure it's all going to work out for you with GoNintendo relaunching or having relaunched again. I don't know when we're posting this video, but it's happening, if not already happening or happened, and it's super exciting, Kevin. I can't wait. I've been a fan of GoNintendo for, I told you before, for well over a decade. Again, I was working at Nintendo when it happened during the Wii era, when it happened, when I found GoNintendo the first time, and I can't wait for it to be back. It's been great, knowing you over these years, and I am so excited for its relaunch and for it to become, even bigger than ever. So,
well, thank you very much for saying all that kind stuff, and I feel exactly the same about you. I've always been super impressed by what you and your team does on this channel. It blows my mind still. And you've been one of the nicest people I've met connected to the industry. We've had a great relationship this whole time. I couldn't ask for a better friend through the industry, and thank you for having me on to do this. I'm absolutely honored.
It's been awesome having you on the channel again. It's been something I've been wanting to do for a few years now, so I'm glad we finally had a good opportunity to do so.
Well, my schedule will let me be around a little more now.
All right, awesome. We'll have to do this more often. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Kevin. And of course, before we end it here, In case someone somehow doesn't know at this point how to find you, where can people find you at? Both, if they want to follow you personally, or of course for the relaunch of Go Nintendo.
For Go Nintendo, you can go to GoNintendo.com. On Twitter, we're GoNintendo Tweet. And I don't do too much personal social media nowadays. So if you want to know what I'm doing, go to those sites because you'll hear a lot from me.
That's probably smarter, honestly. I respect that. And with that, everyone, that's the end of our discussion with Kevin from Go Nintendo. So go check out the relaunch of the website. There'll be links to all that in the description below. It's going to be super exciting, and I can't wait to find out more about it once it's officially live. So with that, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye, everyone.